Yes, sir. How we doing, baby? This is Adam Caplan, the voice in your ears. Welcome back to AC Radio. As you can see, I'm decked out in all my Steelers kit today because we've got some breaking news, and I want to get this right, so I'm going to read it off my phone. Andrew Filipponi, at the Pony Express on Twitter, breaking: the ketchup bottles are coming down. Heinz Field will be renamed Acrisure Stadium, after the Michigan-based insurance brokerage firm. An official announcement could come as soon as Tuesday. Well, first impression, I couldn't even pronounce the stadium name properly. That's going to be a problem as a big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number two, Heinz Stadium is historically one of those fields that when players were traveling to Pittsburgh, not only did they know they were going into the Steelers' house or they were going into Steeltown, they also knew that they were going to Heinz Field. And when I think of Heinz Field, I think of working class men and women, blue collar men and women that are, going down to their barbecue and having a couple hot dogs with a little bit of Heinz ketchup on it, or they're at the ball game with their families and they're, having more ketchup with the French fries and the chicken tenders and the hot dogs. And doesn't mean that Heinz isn't going to exist, but the Heinz brand, in my opinion, kind of resonates with the town of Pittsburgh. An old school steel town that plays hard-nosed football, always has a fantastic defense. And, historically, in Ben Roethlisberger, had a rugged quarterback at the helm that got shit done, always made it difficult for himself, but always found a way. And there's a reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers have won 6 Super Bowl championships. So, I'm kind of sad to see it. It's an insurance brokerage, so, it's a completely different brand than Heinz, which, at the end of the day just comes down to money talking. And that's all fine and dandy, but, I guess maybe it's because I'm 30 years old and now they're changing the name of Heinz Field. I'm kind of like, oh shit, man, like my kids are going to be watching the Pittsburgh Steelers play at the Acrisure Stadium. It's the same way as I feel for LA fans. They don't go to the Staples Center anymore. They go to Crypto Arena or Crypto.com Arena. Just doesn't have the same flow, doesn't have the same swag, doesn't have the same history. But at the same time, this game or these sports in general are going to outlive us. So at the end of the day, history is always being made in these arenas and will always continue to be made. So not a big deal, but Heinz Field or Heinz Stadium will be no more. In comes the Michigan-based insurance brokerage, the Acrisure company, or whatever you want to call it. As you can see, I'm not much of an insurance guy. I have it. I need it. But, I'm going to miss my Heinz Stadium. So, a couple changes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger will be no more, and Heinz Stadium will be no more. But, luckily we have Mike Tomlin. Luckily, we got, a great new rookie quarterback in Pickett, and we still got some guys on the defense like Michael Bush that are going to raise hell. So, we'll see what happens for the next season. We also got Najee Harris, by the way. And, we'll see what happens for the season. But otherwise, goodbye to Heinz Stadium. And let's break it down, baby. We had the UFC this weekend. We had Rafael Fiziev versus Rafael dos Anjos. Going to start off first with a probably the most exciting fight of the night, which was Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey of Australia. Now, Michael Johnson, as usual, strong in the kickboxing department, a completely fearless fighter in the octagon, has a wealth of fights, is clearly a veteran, was on the Ultimate Fighter once, was on the same team being coached by George St. Pierre. And, he's had a lot of ups and downs in the UFC. Threw caution to the wind, gave no fucks about Jamie Mullarkey, and some even think that he etched out that split decision. I got to side with the Jamie Mullarkey win for 2 reasons. A, he was in my parlay, but most importantly, Jamie Mullarkey, I felt, even though he threw a little less of the significant strikes, I felt that he was able to buzz Michael Johnson more. Mullarkey only got, buzzed a couple of times in the fight, but Michael Johnson looked clearly the fighter that was more closer to being finished. And, I credit that a lot to Jamie Mullarkey's fearless boxing. I also credit that to his Thai clinch. Threw fucking beautiful knees to the body, followed it up with elbows, created that separation, and went right back to his boxing. So personally for me, that's why I gave Jamie Mullarkey the fight. Even though Michael Johnson might have landed more from the CompuBox and on paper, I felt that, if you were watching that fight with a close eye, you were able to tell that Mullarkey was clearly buzzing Michael Johnson more and was far more closer to getting that TKO or that knockout. And, it's funny about the CompuBox or the fight stats thing. It always seems like folks like to use it when it's with a fighter that they have a personal favorite towards, or they have a personal interest in, whether it's betting or infatuation or whatever the case may be. But I think we could kind of say that just like human judges are flawed, so is a little bit of technology as well. So I wouldn't always rely on it. There's a reason why you have to watch from your perspective and then what the computer tells you. So you got to kind of find a healthy balance between the two. Most will disagree with me. Some won't. Don't really care. Moving on. Aiemann Zahabi versus Ricky Turcios. Great fight. Great fight. Shout out to AZ. Montreal's own, brother of Faraz Zahabi, the owner and the head sensei at TriStar Gym. Obviously coaches some of the greatest fighters on the planet in George St. Pierre, Rory McDonald. But anyways, back to Team AZ. So, listen, man, Aiemann Zahabi really showed that he had a game plan and that he was disciplined and more than capable to stick to that game plan throughout the entire 15 minutes. Ricky Turcios was, a little bit obnoxious in the fight, was throwing very loud thumping feints, was also yelling at the same time, kind of seemed like he was trying to egg on Aiemann Zahabi. And you could see that in the moments when it was Aimann's time to strike, he was throwing, he was throwing. He wasn't as, clean and technical and patient as he usually is. In fact, he was, a little bit more prone to wanting to explode and really put the hurt on Turcios. And what's great about that is he really showed that he has a healthy balance of both. Because I know that Aiemann is one of the biggest killers in the gym at TriStar. When it's sparring day and you got to line up against AZ, you're going to be in it for a long morning or a long afternoon. And he is still capable of being that technical machine inside of the octagon. But in this fight, I could really tell that when it was his time to strike, he was like a snake. He was striking with a vengeance. He was striking with some venom. And, but was able to go right back to the game plan, managed his distance fantastically. I don't even know if that's a word, but he managed his distance in such a great manner where he wasn't in boxing range. He wasn't in kicking range either. So it seemed as if he was a little bit less reluctant to engage, but that's actually not the case. He was standing at the perfect range where Turcios wasn't able to implement his game plan, which probably meant to one of the reasons why he was feinting obnoxiously to try to rope AZ in, but that wasn't the case at all. So really love what I'm seeing from Aiemann Zahabi. Can't wait to see him more active. I think that more activity in Aiemann Zahabi is going to be the reason why he's going to climb the ranks to the 135-pound division and could easily be one of the top 10, top 5, maybe even a title holder. Am I saying that because I'm from Montreal? Maybe. Do I believe in his skill? You bet your damn ass I do. Aiemann Zahabi is here to stay. Congratulations on the win. Followed the game plan to a T. Showed his aggression and his explosiveness when he needed to, but you best believe that in the jiu-jitsu game and even in the stand-up, he could take it low and slow and pick you apart technically as well. I think it's just a matter of more activity, because that is one guy in the gym that when you have to square up with him, you're going to be in there for a long night, baby. Brett, that's a clip. I'm calling him as I see him now. I'm calling my shots like Sugar Sean. After that, what I'm looking at is we had the Nurmagomedov fight. Great fight. Felt that he took it a little bit difficult. He took the more difficult route into that victory, but ultimately was really happy to see another Nurmagomedov carry the family name and get a victory in the octagon. Then we had Chase Sherman versus Jared Vandera? Who knows? Anyways, I got to say, Chase Sherman, Brett's laughing at me over there. I got to say, Chase Sherman showed great head movement. He had great boxing. He was very, very technical. He remained reserved. His opponent looked a little bit more confused in there, landed a couple of strong single shots because it was heavyweight, but ultimately Chase Sherman showed that he's been working on his head movement, he's been working on his boxing, and that you don't always have to put fights away in the first round. So great fight by Chase Sherman. Didn't catch the co-main event, unfortunately. Had to be that guy, had to go run an errand. My wife's pregnant, but caught the main event. Rafael Fiziev versus Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, look, a great fight. Fiziev has clearly shown that he is a lightweight contender. And if you look at all of the matchups that he can be involved with Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, even Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson, I mean, Benil Dariush, what's his name? Is Nurmagomedov's main man. Islam Makhachev. How could I forget Islam Makhachev? I mean, fucking crazy fights with Fiziev. Dos Anjos was the perfect opponent of a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a great MMA wrestler, has fearless striking, will beat you up on the feet, then pin you up against the cage and take you down, try to look for submissions, go for ground and pound. You might get out of it. He'll get back up with you and go right back to it. So Fiziev had a great challenge in Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, and dos Anjos implemented his game plan. Yes, was he a step behind? Yes, he was. But this is part of the reason why Fiziev got the matchup. It was meant for Fiziev to win. But, because Rafael dos Anjos, there's two Rafaels here, you better pay attention, is a gatekeeper. He knows how to, he is going to be that test that is going to tell you whether you are able to fight the upper echelon in the UFC or not. So this matchup was a perfect matchup. Fiziev looked like he was getting tired in that third round after, having to wrestle with dos Anjos, was, implementing his kickboxing on the feet against dos Anjos. And then we started to see that maybe Fiziev was starting to fade. And then Rafael was taking over in later in that third, maybe mid-fourth round. But then once again, Fiziev prevailed, finished Rafael dos Anjos. I credit that to his heart. I credit that to it being his time. He is in his prime. And dos Anjos has had his moments in the octagon, has been a UFC champion already, and it was time for him to, for lack of a better term, pass the torch to Rafael Fiziev, who is a fantastic K1 striker, an even better Muay Thai striker, and actually works on his wrestling and grappling a hell of a lot more than fans might think. And Fiziev has a wealth of matchups in the lightweight division to propel him forward. And I actually spoke with a coach of Rafael Fiziev's at Tiger Muay Thai that he spent a little bit of time with, because during Ramadan in Thailand, there weren't a lot of coaches that were willing to train Fiziev at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. But Coach Steven Latutsky was. And I had him on my Instagram live last Sunday. And he had told me an endearing story where he had the honor of coaching Fiziev in one of his fights on Fight Island. I believe it was Mark Diakese. And, money was tight for Fiziev. Money was tight. And what he had to do was he had to split the room in Bangkok. They shared a hotel room between him and his coach. And then when he went over to Abu Dhabi and fought on Fight Island and beat Mark the Bone Crusher Diakese of England, he was in his room and he was so happy about the victory. And then when he found out that he won the $50,000, it changed his life. And it's just amazing to see how one fight, one moment, everything could then come back together in your life. When you feel like you're down, but you still remain persistent and you still remain consistent and you still put that work in and always have that belief that something's going to happen, and then you go out and it actually fucking happens, that's a hero story right there. That's a magical story. And I thank Steven for telling me that story because it's very personal. A lot of people love to hear that story. Wouldn't want to be in that position, though. Wouldn't want to be down to your last few shekels. No, you wouldn't. So when you hear a story like that on how that $50K US changed his life, and now you look at him now where he's going to be challenging for the top 10 or the top 8 or the top 5 in the UFC's lightweight division, the most lucrative, the most dangerous, the most popular division in the UFC, you got to give it to Rafael Fiziev. It was a great performance. Looked like he was fading in the later rounds, was able to get his second win together and finish a legend and a veteran in Rafael dos Anjos, was given the challenge to show that he could propel himself forward in the rankings, and he passed. And it was good that it wasn't a clean breeze. It was good that it was a challenge. It was good that it had to go to the later rounds, because when you fight that upper echelon in the lightweight division, you better be ready as soon as that bell rings until the final bell, because all those guys in that division are fucking killers. So congratulations to Rafael Fiziev. A great story, a great event. This coming week, we have Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez, a very, very important fight. Why? Because Alex Volkanovski is either thinking to himself, maybe I guess I'll fight Emmett, or I'm going to the lightweight division. So Ortega, who had a very, very close fight with Volkanovski and almost finished him by that guillotine, wants to put on an emphatic performance against Rodriguez to stake his claim to rematch Volkanovski. And Yair had a very exciting loss to Max Holloway, who is out of chances against Alexander the Great now. So now what needs to happen is Yair Rodriguez needs to put on an even better performance against Brian Ortega and call out that champion. Or Yair Rodriguez would then have to fight Josh Emmett, who's been the dark horse in the featherweight division for years and does deserve a title shot. He just doesn't have the name and the popularity behind it. But, there has to be bigger fights for Volkanovski to go on to do. Because the thing is with Volk is he has looked completely unbeatable and always looks like he's getting better. And I don't think he sticks around for 2 fights in the lightweight division. So do you either make it more exciting, roll the dice, hope that Yair wins, which I don't even know if he will. This is going to be a tough fight. Ortega's a fucking baller in there. Okay? He is game as hell. Now, if Yair Rodriguez wins this fight, do you put it on against Josh Emmett in a 5-round main event fight? See how the fight goes, because that's the more exciting and maybe the fight that will have Volkanovski stay a little bit longer in the featherweight division? Or do you just straight ahead let Volkanovski go to the lightweight division? Or do you do the right thing and you give Emmett the job right away? So this weekend's fights are very, 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 very interesting. That was about 5 varies, so you know how interesting it is, and you know how exciting it is. Now, Ortega is obviously going to look to try to get this fight to the ground, even though he's been going balls to the wall on the feet with the boxing and hasn't been afraid to strike with the best of them in Max Holloway and in Alex Volkanovski. Listen, Yair Rodriguez is a different breed, a different type of fighter, a lot more unorthodox, and utilizes the kicks a lot more. Volkanovski more of a boxing and leg kick type of guy, and Holloway predominantly mostly boxing, if not all. So this is going to be a different type of striking challenge for Ortega to have to solve. So that'll be interesting. And then from Yair's side, listen, if Ortega is going to come there to box with him or kickbox with him, Yair is going to be very, very happy. But if Ortega is looking to take this fight to the ground and T-City get back to his roots and look for a triangle, look for a rear naked choke, look for either position over submission rather even, then it's going to be a long 5 rounds for Yair Rodriguez. So I'm hoping Rodriguez is going to, manage the distance well, look to sprawl, have fast and heavy hips, and, break out of those wrestling clinch exchanges. Or, Ortega might take the tough route, which a lot of fighters have been taking these days. Might want to beat Rodriguez at his own game, come to ball, come to box, come to get bloodied up a bit, come to get the shins a little bit nicked up and the ribs as well, and, implement his striking game, because Ortega is no slouch on the feet as well. He has clearly shown that he's been improving his striking with every fight. But he can't win the fight as clean on the ground as he can on the feet. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Styles make matchups, and I'm looking forward to that one. Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. That's all for us today. AC Radio, subscribe, like, share, show some love for the boy. Drop a comment. Let's create more dialogues in the comment section. Drop a like, drop a comment. Anything counts, anything matters. We appreciate the support. Check out the Instagram live that I just did with Steven Latutsky. It's about 60 minutes. This guy always opens his heart and his soul and peels the curtain into his career. He's walked several fighters down that curtain for the UFC, And, he's just a young and hungry coach, similar to a Jesse Thompson, that wants to develop a champion from a young age. So check that one out. Just another streamline of content for you guys. AC Radio, we're out.